This is Michael Jackson as he's never been seen before.
Okay. Here, he's touching you. Watch it, we're lifting up the windows.
These images were captured by psychic Uri Geller, a man who counted Michael as a close friend.
He just hugged me. And you know what? That hug.
Uri was a companion and witness to the star.
And that's me. What can you call me? Uri Geller.
And his home videos offer an intimate insight into the personal world of Michael Jackson.
You're crushing him! You're crushing him! Honor Michael!
Now Uri has agreed to open up his archive for this program to give a personal portrait of one of the greatest icons of our time.
I really shouted, Michael, stop it! Michael, you will die! You're killing yourself!
This is My Friend Michael Jackson, Uri's story. This is Michael Jackson on a visit to Britain a few years ago. By his side is Uri Geller.
Don't fall, please. Take that.
Marcy, get the mirror. Michael!
Watch it.
Uri shared a friendship with Michael that few others enjoyed.
The man that I loved so much is going to be my best man. The man agreed to be my best man in a Jewish ritual. Wow.
Michael, in private moments, shared his own dreams with Uri.
That it was possible to get Michael Jackson to the moon. And I relayed this to Michael. I mean, the idea of him being able to actually do his moonwalk on the moon.
Uri Geller, it's Michael Jackson calling. When you get this message, please know that I pray that we do the moon trip. So I want to be the first one to do it in the pop world.
And he shared his ambitions.
You know, when Michael heard that Steven Spielberg got a knighthood, Michael wanted a knighthood too. And I understand, come on, he should have gotten a knighthood, really.
But at times, their friendship was tested.
Don't tell me, this is my private life. Stop there.
Uri even questioned Michael about the most private areas of his life.
I asked him, Michael, did you ever touch a child in an inappropriate manner?
This is the story of an at times turbulent friendship.
There was something that bonded us. I think it was the turmoils and the traumas that we went through in our lives that kind of linked us together in a strange and bizarre way.
Back in the 70s, Uri was one of the biggest stars around. He rose to fame with his spoon-bending and psychic abilities.
This is so heavy. Yes, it's happening. It's happening. Yes, it's better.
He appeared on chat shows around the globe.
Look, I'll show it to the camera. I don't know whose key this is, but it's...
Among his fans was a young Michael Jackson.
If you look at it very slowly, it is still bending. Now...
And years later, in 1999, the pair would meet in a New York hotel room through their mutual friend, Harrods owner Mohammed Al-Fayed.
Know what to expect. So there I was sitting on this couch and looking around, and suddenly, out of his bedroom, comes out Michael Jackson. He must have come out of the bathroom of his suite because he wasn't wearing a shirt. His black hair was combed backwards, and he actually looked handsome. And I jumped up and I said, Michael, you look fantastic.
I knew that love would bring this happiness I'm being. I tried to keep my sanity.
During several trips to New York, their friendship was cemented. Uri even designed part of the sleeve notes for Michael's Invincible album. Soon plans were being put in place for Michael to visit Uri in Britain. It was 2001, and Uri was planning to renew his wedding vows with his wife Hannah. He needed a best man.
I call Michael Jackson and I tell him, Michael, listen, I'm renewing my wedding vows. Will you be my best man? And he said, yeah, I'll be your best man. Of course. You know, I get goosebumps now. The most famous man in the world is going to be my best man. But more important for me was the man that I loved so much is going to be my best man. The man agreed to be my best man in a Jewish ritual. Wow.
Just months later, Michael Jackson would fly to Britain to be best man at Uri's wedding. But he was on crutches. He'd broken his foot in a fall at his Neverland ranch. On a sunny Wednesday afternoon, guests waited anxiously for the ceremony to begin, but Michael was nowhere to be seen. It looked as though the King of Pop was going to miss Uri's big day. Michael Jackson and Uri Geller had met each other through their mutual friend Muhammad Al Fayed. They were embarking on a new friendship, during which Uri would see Michael as few have seen him. They would share late-night shopping trips.
I almost believe you.
And even a private visit to Parliament. Fans would follow them every step of the way as they travelled around Britain. But in 2001, as Michael arrived in London for his first visit to Uri, he had one very special appointment in his diary. Michael had agreed to be Uri's best man as he renewed his wedding vows with his wife Hannah. The day before the ceremony, Uri had given Michael his wedding ring to look after.
I wanted Michael to have the ring on him for 24 hours. I wanted Michael Jackson's energy to be absorbed into that wedding ring. I believe in this, you know, come on.
They have 2 children together. They have been married civilly.
And the wedding began, and Michael hasn't arrived. And I'm beginning to look at my watch, and Hannah is telling me, hey, Michael is a bit late. And the guests are already here, the marquee is full, and, you know, some friends, celebrities came. So I tell everyone, you know what? Let's eat now. Let's go and eat. The food is laid out there because Michael is late. And the truth of the matter is that we couldn't start the ceremony because my ring was in his pocket. An hour passes, and Michael is not showing up, and we are on the phone, and I'm sweating, I'm running around between the guests, trying to comfort them. They all had fun. And then people thought that this is a kind of a big setup, and Michael will never, this was like a prank. Because they could not believe that the Michael Jackson is really going to come to be my best man. And after 2 long hours, Michael's entourage, the bell rings, and out there, the gate, and I ran the marquee, I ran up here and looked at the gate, and the gate was opening. The limousines kind of stream down the driveway, and they come up in front of the house, and the door slides open, and Michael comes out with a crouch. And I bring him here, and he sat right here behind, on this black sofa, and I kind of kneeled down, and I put my hand on his bandages, and I said, I'm not a healer, of course, but I told him, Michael, look, help me, let me focus my energy into your foot, you'll feel okay.
Among the guests waiting to meet Michael was journalist Eve Pollard.
There was more security than I've ever seen. We've got used to security now, but in 2001, I'd never seen anything like it. And I'd edited newspapers. There was more security than you get with a royal attending. Then, of course, we got into the wedding, and normally, you know, you sit down, you watch the wedding, you have your reception. Michael was so late that people sort of sat down at first, then thought, what am I doing here after 20 minutes? Then they started serving food and drinks because you just couldn't wait for this thing, you know, to get going. And then Michael came in. And then, as always, we were transfixed. who were fascinated to watch him. He sat down for most of the ceremony because he was on crutches, he'd hurt his foot. The crutches, I think, were also, white to match the white skull cap he wore. And he was very quiet, and I think did recognise it was Uri and Hannah's day.
Among the stars at the wedding was singer Patti Boulay.
When we met at the wedding, at Uri Gettler's wedding, that was the first time Michael began to tease me about looking like Diana Ross. He'll turn around, look at me in that naughty way. He'd go, "Ain't no mountain high enough." Michael, he would laugh and giggle, you know. And he said, "Patti, you look just like that. There must be a throwback. She must come from your family." I said, "I don't think so." I don't think so at all. There was kind of this energy, and it's Michael's energy, nobody else. The only person I've come across with that kind of effect is the Pope, really, on people.
Just before I was lifted up on the chair, because that's another custom tradition, he just hugged me. And you know what? You know, that hug, which, I don't know, lasted for just... Sorry. That hug was just a few seconds, but it was real love and unconditional. It's just so hard for me to believe that he's gone. And I haven't spoken to him for a long time, but still there is that connection. And I comfort myself today, just weeks after his death, that he's there, he's up there.
During the same trip to England, Michael attended a book launch. Uri had published letters he'd exchanged with his friend Rabbi Shmuley Boteach.
I wrote a book with Rabbi Shmuley Boteach called The Rabbi and the Psychic. Very, very sensitive, powerful book. It's actually started with me writing letters to Shmuley. He wrote back letters to me, and they were so profoundly deep and spiritual and sensitive and revealing that we decided, hey, let's create a book out of the letters because it could help a lot of people. So the book launch was scheduled in England, and Michael agreed to come and help us promote it. It was amazing.
The day after the book launch, Michael made his way to the Oxford University Union. He'd been invited to make a speech about the importance of good parenting and to launch a new children's charity, which he'd set up with his rabbi friend.
There was this huge, massive anticipation waiting for Michael Jackson to come. You know, I bet with you that most of the kids there did not believe that Michael will come. This was not true. And it was a rainy evening, and you know that there is space in the hall for maybe, 300 people, maybe 400, I don't remember. My goodness, there were hundreds and hundreds of students lined up outside the auditorium, the hall. And when we arrived, it was... some were clapping hands, some were shouting, some were running to take pictures.
Michael had decided to speak about his childhood in his speech and to refer to his own difficult relationship with his father. Author Jonathan Margolis had been with Michael as he travelled to Oxford from London.
He decided he wanted to call his dad on the phone. And he asked me if I had a phone, which I had. He asked one of his many people in the minibus who had his dad's number in Las Vegas. I think he lived in Las Vegas. dialed him, and there was this extraordinary conversation, of which, of course, I only heard one side, which was just sort of, "Oh, hi, Dad, I'm in England. I'm going to address the students at Oxford University, and I'm going to talk about you. But it's okay, it's in a very positive light, nothing to worry about." And the father said something, and he listened, and he finally said, "Dad, I love you," and then handed me the phone back. And he kind of looked out the window at the traffic on the M40 and said, "You know, I don't think I've ever said that to him before."
At one stage of his speech about his father and forgiving his father, he broke down and cried. It was just maybe 30 seconds to a minute, but it was real, it was genuine. And Michael didn't cry in kind of public places, unless I'm wrong, but it was very, very emotional. And I think all the students were with him. There was silence. We all know that his father was a very strong man who wanted Michael to be a superstar. And we all read the times when Michael stood by a window, 5 years old, 6 years old, saw other children play baseball, basketball, and then he was probably dragged back into the room to rehearse and practice and sing. So he lost his childhood.
He rocks in the treetop all day long, hopping, rhyming, and singing his song. I do the band on Jaybird Street, round there the rhyming go tweet, tweet, tweet. Rock your robin, oh, rock, rock, rock your robin.
Friends say it was his attempts to recapture his lost childhood that led to an obsession with Peter Pan. Theatre director Trevor Nunn met Michael in the 80s when he was seeking his advice about staging a new tour.
When I was talking about the kind of staging that I'd done in a show called Starlight Express, he said, that's so much the kind of thing I want to do. I want to do something different. I want to be able to fly over the audience. And I said, that's not a problem. I was kind of bantering, I suppose. No, there's no difficulty. I had people flying over the audience when I did Peter Pan. And it was like I had pressed a button that would give him an electric shock. Everything changed. He sat bolt upright. He grabbed the arms of the chair. He said, "You did Peter Pan?" I said, yeah, I directed it in London. Oh my God, you directed Peter Pan. And the excitement was just overwhelming. He jumped up, he walked around the room, he kept repeating, "Peter Pan, oh my God, Peter Pan." And then I explained to him that we had done the show in London using adult actors to play the children. And that took it one stage further, because suddenly he was like with eyes brimful with tears, and he came across the room and he knelt down in front of me and he grabbed my knees and he said, "Could I play Peter Pan? Is it too late for me to play Peter Pan?" It was just the two of us in this huge room. And I've since wondered, well, how often could he reveal that childlike part of himself? And the discussion about Peter Pan not only released it, but I think it showed me that it was not so much a part that he wanted to play, it was the person he wanted to be.
Uri would discover Michael's childlike qualities as their friendship grew stronger. A second visit to Uri in Britain was already being planned, to include a midnight shopping trip to Harrods and a private tour of Parliament.
He sat down and I said to him, "Hey, Michael, you can't sit here. Only elected people can sit in the House of Commons." He looked very bemused.
After Michael Jackson's appearance as best man at Uri's wedding in 2001, the friendship between the pair went from strength to strength. They would often talk on the phone. On more than one occasion, they discussed a proposal put forward by an American space enthusiast.
I got an email from a scientist, an engineer that worked in Boeing with ties to NASA. And I don't know, the conversation started between me and him that it is, no matter how far out this sounds and how science fiction it sounds, that it was possible to get Michael Jackson to the moon. And I relayed this to Michael. And Michael was extremely ecstatic about it. He was so excited just by, the idea of him being able to actually do his moonwalk on the moon. And I remember, it was really, to me, it was an impossibility, but the flicker, the hope that it could happen was there because these emails were coming from a scientist. At 3 o'clock in the morning, Michael Jackson left me a message on my answer phone.
Uri Geller, it's Michael Jackson calling. When you get this message, please know that I pray that we do the moon trip. I want to be the first one to do it in the pop world. And now I hear that NSYNC and all these people are trying to go. I want to be first, please. And let's do Hands Across England. And let's think of some other wonderful things. I love you. Goodbye.
This was so sweet, it was so timid, it was so naive, it was so gullible, it was so beautiful and gentle that I had to keep, I didn't want to erase the message. I listened to it over and over and over again. You see, Michael Jackson believed in the impossible.
Just months later, the superstar was back in Britain to visit Uri. With Michael's permission, every step of the visit was recorded by his friend.
Michael! Thank you, Michael! I love you!
You see, these scenes, these moments, conjures up religion. It conjures up God. This is kind of on a different plane. This is like these people, these fans, looked at Michael almost like a Jesus.
You are amazing.
Illusionist David Blaine, a friend of Uri's, joined Michael on the visit. Their first stop, a tour of Parliament as a guest of another friend of Uri's, Lord Greville Janner.
Michael really loved that sculpture, but come on, that's been there probably for hundreds of years. He couldn't take that home. My feelings here, going into the Parliament with Michael Jackson, was simply bizarre. That's the only word I can say. Really freaky, the whole thing, but it was meaningful. It was important. It was power. It was kind of credibility. You see, Michael wanted he wanted the Queen to honor him. He really did want that, very much. That was one thing that really was in Michael's heart.
Why did you want to come and visit Parliament?
Is it my wonderful friend, Lord Janner?
No, that's a good answer. Yeah. He's a politician as well.
And to educate me about this whole incredible thing.
You know, when Michael heard that Steven Spielberg got a knighthood, Michael wanted a knighthood too. And I understand, come on, he should have gotten a knighthood, really. But it was impossible to achieve. And we spoke about that quite a lot. In the Parliament, there were moments where, without filming, he kind of whispered to me, "Is the Queen here? Are we going to meet the Queen?"
Michael Jackson had a magical status wherever he went, even in Parliament. Now, he came on a Friday, and there were no parliamentarians there. And the staff and everybody who met him treated him with much more joy and respect and amazement than they ever do any of the members of either House of Parliament. He was a rare and wonderful visitor. So I took Michael through the House of Commons, and he sat down. And I said to him, "Hey, Michael, you can't sit here. Only elected people can sit in the House of Commons." He looked very bemused, because it must be the only place in the world he's ever been told he couldn't sit down.
Later in the day, Uri and Michael made their way to Paddington Station. Michael had agreed to speak at a fundraising event in Exeter, where Uri was co-chairman of the local football team.
At Paddington, we were mobbed. This was horrifying. It was scary. It was panicky. It was chaos, pandemonium. There was suffocation. There's no air. It was just unreal.
You're crushing him! You're crushing him! Honor Michael!
During this chaos, I really feared for his life. I honestly did. Nobody could contain the pressure of the bodies. Somehow Michael fell onto the pavement of Paddington. And he lay there like this for a few seconds, and you can imagine, I could not think. He's on the floor here, right here. Look, it takes seconds. We try to get some air around him, and then I've never seen anything like it. It was like from the movie The Matrix. He sprang up, or he catapulted off the floor like some type of a cheetah, a tiger, and he just zoomed as fast as the speed of light to the train. We couldn't catch up with him. It was impossible.
Yeah, of course. And Michael, this is for you. This is Marvel Comics, and that's me.
What kind of comics?
Michael had agreed to travel to Exeter to help raise money for Exeter City Football Club and to raise money for a children's charity. On the train with him was Mark Lester. The pair had become friends when they were both child stars. Mark had played the part of Oliver as a boy. Michael and Mark were godfathers to each other's children.
As a godparent, Michael was fabulous. I mean, we spent Christmas with him a couple of years ago, and he flew us all out to Bahrain for a week, and we arrived at this palace where we were staying, and Michael had laid out all the Christmas presents, and it looked like the ground floor of Hamleys. I've never seen so many presents in my life. I mean, it was ridiculous. I mean, if the children never had Christmas again, that would have been, they've had all their Christmases in one go. I mean, it was unbelievable. And we had a week of absolute joy with Michael and his children. And Michael, as a dad, was a great dad. He was the sort of dad that everyone would want to have as a dad. You know, he was firm but fair. The children he was very hot on manners, especially table manners. The children were extremely polite. They always had to say please and thank you, and he was very particular about that. They were very well educated, I must say. They are some of the brightest kids, and they are very polite and very, very nice children. Michael did a very good job on bringing them up.
Once in Exeter, thousands were waiting to meet Michael as he arrived at the football ground with Uri, Mark and David Blaine. It was a special moment for one disabled young fan.
I ran through the whole crowd, jumped under the bodyguard's legs and jumped in Michael Jackson's arms and held him so tight. It was unbelievable. And he walked around for a bit and then tapped me on the head and said, "I love you." And then it was just like the most memorable thing I ever done in my life.
It helped him enormously. It helped with your self-esteem, didn't it? It helped with just feeling good about himself, because when you are disabled, and certainly he wasn't walking very well, it was a huge thing for you to do, wasn't it? To make that
definitely.
Running across that pitch. And of course then we got to know Uri, who's been in his life ever since.
Back in the stadium, Michael met other local children. One of them was Lauren Setherton, who at the time was suffering from cancer.
Right in front of me was Michael Jackson, and I was just stunned. I put my hands like this. I had tears in my eyes, and I was shaking. I was like, Mum, Michael Jackson stood right in front of me, and It was just surreal. To be honest, he looked like a waxwork doll. He did not look real. He was so pale and his eyeliner tattooed on and bright red lips. And I remember just thinking, oh, he just doesn't look real. And when I was talking to him, I just couldn't help but look obviously at his nose. I couldn't stop staring. And, you know, I was trying my hardest not to, because, you know, when you're talking to somebody and you're staring at one thing. But like my mum said too, that you just can't help it because you're just thinking it's so tiny and all... The way that it's changed and it's so tiny, you think, how can he possibly breathe through that? A little nose, you know? There was one thing in particular that he did. He had a big bowl of M&Ms. So he had thousands of packets in this massive bowl. And I can't remember what colour it was, but there was definitely one colour had to be taken out, which we found really odd because he did. He said, no, I don't want any of that colour.
Today, Lauren is in good health. The memories of Michael's visit are still etched on her mind.
There you go. Let's go.
When Michael talked to me about my illness and my cancer and treatment and being really positive, he made me feel so good. I went away feeling extra positive and felt really good that somebody that famous could even talk to me and talk that nicely and say how positive things. It just made me feel great, really.
Another day has gone. I'm still all alone.
Back in London, Michael had one last appointment in his diary before flying back to the States, a shopping trip to Harrods.
He wanted to see the memorial that Mohammed built, created for Diana and Dodi. So we went down the escalator and he stood there and there was silence and he was so sad. Michael loved Diana and he was a good friend of Dodi. And I think it was the first time that he saw this memorial. It was a very touching moment. I looked into his face and he just stood there and Mohammed was also very sad. I had long conversations with Michael about Diana. He just was in love with her. No doubt. He was in love with Diana. This is the memorial, as you can see. You must understand Mohammed, very sad, crying. And then we moved away into the clothing section. Michael liked this shirt, so he took it off the mannequin and Mohammed gave him the shirt.
Look, Turco.
And I don't know why I bent a spoon for Michael here. Somebody wanted me to bend a spoon.
That's music.
This is in the antique section of Harrods, and there was this weird, bizarre antique reading chair. Michael sat in it. In the music section, the DVD and CD section, I discovered a box with 100 most renowned and famous pianists. And I noticed that one of my closest friends, Byron Janis, who lives in New York, his name was on the box, so his CD was in there. So I called Byron, and I said, Byron, here is Michael, talk to him.
Hi, Byron.
Hi, Michael. How you doing?
How are you doing? We're sitting here looking at it's a really incredible box. It's huge. And this is a great honor for to have you in there. It's amazing.
Yeah,
it's a huge thing. It really is. It's like a big...
They got a lot of pianists in 100 years, I guess.
Yeah, it's a great honor for you. It's amazing.
But look, Michael takes his time. This is the miracle of Michael Jackson. He had time for everyone, no matter who, what position, who they were. He just pleased everyone. He didn't have to, but he did.
Michael's visit to London had been a triumph. But his friendship with Uri was about to be rocked to its foundations. Uri had been asked by journalist Martin Bashir to introduce him to Michael. The documentary that followed would create headlines around the world. In 2002, Uri Geller and Michael Jackson were firm friends. Michael had visited Uri twice. He'd even been best man when Uri renewed his wedding vows. But 3 years earlier, during one of their first meetings, Uri had wanted to put his mind at rest about child abuse allegations made against Michael.
In the last half hour, Michael Jackson's lawyers have agreed a huge cash settlement with the boy who says the singer abused him.
In 1993, Michael had been accused of molesting a 13-year-old boy, Geordie Chandler. And as Uri prepared to embark on a friendship with Michael, he found an opportunity to ask him about those allegations.
He said to me suddenly, this mind power that you have, Uri Geller, can you send it to me? Can I feel it? And also, there's some food I eat and I don't want to eat junk food. Can you make me not eat it? And then I said to him, look, Michael, I used to be a hypnotist in Israel before I became famous for my spoon bending. Will you allow me to hypnotize you? And he said, wow, yes, can you really hypnotize? There was that streak of suspicion in me. I had to get rid of that, and that's why I suddenly confronted him under hypnosis. I asked him, Michael, did you ever touch a child in an inappropriate manner? And Michael answered immediately, no, I would never do that. And then I asked him, well, why did you pay off Geordie Chandler? He said to me immediately, I had enough. I couldn't take it anymore. You know, I brought him out of the trance. He never knew this. To me, this was a private validation that this poor man is innocent.
But allegations of child abuse would return to haunt Michael years later. In 2002, Uri received a phone call from journalist Martin Bashir, the man who had famously interviewed Princess Diana. He wanted Uri to introduce him to Michael so he could make a documentary.
I said to myself, wow, you know, Michael loved Diana so much that maybe this is the right guy. This is the right person. I mean, he did interview Princess Diana, for goodness sake. And I thought, this is great. And I took Martin Bashir to the hotel. We sat in the lobby, and then I introduced Michael to Bashir in his room. I introduced them, and I left them.
Do you come out here on your own?
Yeah.
How often?
All the time.
You just come out on your own?
Yes.
What, and go on a ride?
Yep.
The documentary that followed made headlines around the world. But from Michael Jackson's point of view, it was for all the wrong reasons. During the period of filming, Michael had dangled his baby son blanket from a hotel balcony in Berlin. And later in the programme, Michael had been filmed holding a boy's hand at his Neverland Ranch. He admitted sharing his bedroom with children.
They make that sexual. It's not sexual. But we're going to sleep. I tuck them in. I put a little music on, and do a little storytelling. I read a book. It's very sweet. Put the fireplace on. We give them hot milk. You know, we have little cookies. It's very charming.
Just months after broadcast, the boy filmed with Michael would accuse him of abuse. Michael was arrested and handcuffed.
In my opinion, this interview could have been fantastic for Michael. But Michael did a few mistakes while Bashir was interviewing him. One, he sat there with this kid, holding hands, very innocently, very lovingly, not thinking what I've told him so many times, that the world doesn't see that the right way. The world gets suspicious. It's unacceptable. Two, that Michael said something about the kids, tucking them in bed, giving them milk, and he doesn't say it's totally innocent, because it was innocent. Michael was saying the truth, not thinking that the world doesn't see it that way.
During the trial that followed in 2005, the star looked frail, the strain on him evident. Uri appeared on TV to plead Michael's innocence.
I know for a fact that there will be thousands of fans helping him, they will attend, and I also hope that Michael Jackson knows how to dip into the pool of tangible consciousness of his fans and derive the positive energy and the love that he will be getting from them.
Finally, after a 5-month trial, Michael was acquitted. But it seemed his friendship with Uri was over.
So after that documentary, the rift occurred. Yeah. And, you know, I really feel bad about it. But you know what? It was hard and difficult to get back, even if I wanted to. Situations changed.
This year, however, it seemed that Uri's friendship with Michael could have been rekindled. The pair still shared a mutual friend, British bodyguard Matt Fides, seen here with Michael.
Just a few weeks ago, he asked about me. He asked Matt, "Hey, how's Uri? Give Uri my love. I miss him." Matt told me every time Michael would come to England, he would ask for me. So I knew that the powerful connection that was always there, the love, the respect, the mutual chemistry was there, intact.
Michael had announced a comeback, a series of 50 London concerts.
These will be my final show performances in London.
But just weeks after that press conference, Uri was in his car with his wife Hannah when he received a phone call saying Michael was in a coma.
I remember driving down the driveway and I could hear the phones ringing, and my mobile phone was ringing. And I picked up the phone and it was CNN, some anchor person, and they said to me, "Can you confirm the rumors that Michael is dead?" And I thought it was a hoax. My living mind would not accept that, and I shut the phone down because it was a hoax. It was not real.
The king of pop was dead.
Good evening. We have breaking news for you tonight. The singer Michael Jackson is reported to have died from a heart attack.
News reports talked of an addiction to prescription drugs.
Okay, and I'll call you too.
For Uri, the reports were no surprise. For years, he kept private what he'd witnessed.
Thank you, Michael. I love it. Thank you. Michael, I love you. This.
I've never, ever seen him take anything. I've never seen that. But I've seen the aftermath. And the aftermath sometimes was devastating. I couldn't wake Michael up one day. I grabbed his body and I kind of tried to wake him up. I was really concerned. I said, "Michael, what have you done? What have you taken? Michael, open your eyes. Are you okay?" There were moments where Matt Fides and I were shouted back when we tried to forcefully explain him that, you know, he can't go on with this. And it was said, "Don't tell me, this is my private life. Stop there."
On another occasion, Uri confronted Michael as he lay motionless in bed.
And, you know, I really shouted, Michael, stop it. Michael, you will die. You're killing yourself. Look at you. The world needs you. Nobody wants to lose you. And he was there in bed, and he just stared at me. And you know, I'm sure he knew, of course. I'm sure he knew, but only God knows now why he did this.
Whatever the cause of Michael's death, for Uri and millions of fans, his legacy will be his music.
Cause nothing
Michael Jackson was a sensitive, intuitive, gentle person, loving individual, and he gave so much to the world. He knew how to drink in and absorb the love that was emitted to him from his millions of fans around the world. He was a master in taking that power of love, that energy, and turn it into music. He was amazing, and I will always remember Michael as an icon, as an idol, as a phenomenon, and most of all as the biggest pop star the universe will ever have.
Next tonight, the insight into the world of the King of Pop continues here on ITV2 with Martin Bashir and Living with Michael Jackson.